Hey Paige,
Hey,
how goes
Sarah.
the new article?
Good. It's just, there's nothing to write about with fashion anymore. I wish we were in the 1920s when fashion was everything.
I'm Sarah Novak,
I'm Paige Murray.
and we're going back in time to report on the latest fashion trends of the 1920s and 30s.
Women in the early 1900s had a very ladylike demeanor. They had long hair, long dresses, and skirts. Up until 1908, the style had been about corsets and bending yourself into an unnatural S figure. In 1915, the hobble skirt took a backseat, with a more fuller skirt, which came to your ankles. The style was very unfitted now. By 1918, the look was transitioning into the more straight and curveless look that would take over the 1920s with the boyish look. Women wanted to look young and free, like an adolescent teenage girl. There was much less focus on radical figure using, boning, and trying to change the shape.
Although the hobble skirt and lampshade skirt in 1915 were an improvement from the tight restraints of the corset, they were very difficult to walk in because of the long hemline and straight figure that didn't allow for much movement. However, these trends were the stepping stone from the flouncy dresses of the previous era to the straight and curveless look that would become the fad of the 1920s. The bob haircut also began to gain some popularity amongst women, rather than long and done-up hair. A shocking trend that emerged was the rise of the hemline. They were now at or above the ankle, which was extremely scandalous for the time. The age of taking risks was emerging. Women were also starting to go out more and be a little bit more free with clothing before the 1920s. In 1926 began the iconic age of the flapper girl. The flapper was not only a fashion trend, but a decided lifestyle. The flapper girl would go to jazz clubs, let loose, and dance among the men. A flapper girl might also be seen drinking in public, which was previously only done in the comfort of their homes, as it was considered very unladylike. To help us better understand the mindset of a flapper girl, we've set up an interview with Paige, a big supporter of the new trend, and a young farm girl who idolizes her style like so many other young girls across the country. Stay tuned. As a young farm girl, I really idolize your style. Tell me about it.
It's all about rebelling against women's standards. No longer are we on the arm of a man. The war's over, times are changing, and I want to represent a youthfulness of a young teenager with long, loose dresses and just enjoy what I would like to wear. No longer are we subject to strict standards of pre-war times with corsets that we can't breathe in and long dresses that we can't move in. And the flapper is all about freedom.
So, what are you wearing? In terms of clothing, what made the flapper era so different was the scandalousness of the styles compared to what had been appropriate in the past. Where before the 1920s it was flattering to show off a perfect figure, flapper girls were determined to hide their curves and signs of femininity. However, even though the clothes were more loose, they also became more revealing. Hemlines rose to shocking new heights, the knee. Women wore dresses that displayed the entire lower half of their legs, and also spaghetti straps on top, leaving shoulders sometimes exposed. At the same time, women wanted to portray the look of a flat chest, no figure, and boyish hair. Accessories were also very important in the 1920s. Inspired by Egyptian themes, pearls and bling were the popular trend. Necklaces, headbands, and bracelets, all outfitted with bling, were endorsed by fashion designer and icon Coco Chanel. The beading and embroidery could also be found on bodices of classy gowns, which was very time-consuming to make, but were worth it for the excellent look. A hat pulled low over the boyish bob and very low-heeled Mary Jane-type shoes often accompanied these outfits. That's so inspiring, but don't your parents disapprove?
A lot of people disapprove of us flappers. You see, men mostly like it when women take on traditional roles of being a housewife or working around the house. Flappers stand for the idea that women can be so much more than that. Women should have the same rights as men.
Wow. Do you think I could have a sip of that wine?
Of course you can.
Drink up. That was good. Do you think I could try your cigarette?
Of course.
Let's go dancing!
Even though a lot of people had a problem with the look of the flapper, that's not what was causing the most protest. Catalogs such as Eaton's began advertising bathing suits that revealed the arms, legs, and shoulders of a woman. Still very modest compared to what we are used to today. However, this was a time where men were still permitted to wear swim shirts at the beach. If men were expected to cover up that much, the standards for women before the 1920s was practically at a wetsuit level of coverage. This was until the flapper era came along, and women became obsessed with the revealing and rebellious look. There were laws for both men and women about how they should dress at the beach, and most blatantly disregarded them. Many women were arrested for their attire at the beach and actually wore it on purpose to protest. The Catholic Society had such a problem with the images of scandalous bathing suits in catalogs that they formed the Catholic Women's League just to protest it. Reporter Paige Murray has more of the story.
I'm Paige Murray from Etobicoke CI, and today I'm going to be interviewing Sarah Novak from the Women's Catholic League. So, what are your thoughts on women's bathing suits?
Today, in the 1920s, women's bathing suits are completely indecent and inappropriate. Catalogs today are advertising bathing suits that are revealing all kinds of things that women should not be revealing. Whatever happened to the long hemlines and very covered bathing suits? Now women are revealing all kinds of skin, even though there are laws in place to keep this from happening on the beach. People completely ignore them. It is completely indecent and inappropriate what our women are wearing today.
And why do you feel this way?
I feel that women should be very covered. Women have their role, and that is to be very modest and work in the house. They should not be out revealing their sexuality like this.
Interesting. I'm sure many would beg to differ, but very interesting. Thank you for your time, Sarah.
Thank you.
We've heard so much about women's fashion in the 1920s and 30s, but what about the men? Well, men's fashion wasn't quite as iconic in the era as women's was, but it was still a turning point into the fashion we see today. Until this point, suits had been very extravagant and changed multiple times a day. You would never see a man today in a four-piece suit as he might have worn in the early 1900s. It was during the 1920s that began the men's fashion era that we see in present time. Let's have a look.
Hello, madame. I'm Drew, owner of Drew's Tailor Shop. How may I help you today?
My colleague and I have come back from the year 2016 to do a broadcast on 1920s fashion. Do you mind if we take a couple minutes of your time to ask you about men's style?
Well, I suppose I have a bit of time to answer a couple questions. Go ahead. Well, suits today are much lighter and much more fun than they have been in the past. Now they are made of things such as wool, tweed, and have bright pops of color that we've never seen before. Heck, you could even see a man wearing a pink shirt underneath his blazer. A proper gentleman should always be wearing a suit, with the exception of very young men and factory workers. Slim is very much the style nowadays, even though we've been seeing trousers getting looser and looser. For daytime, a man might consider wearing a three-piece suit with a matching vest. However, one should never let the shirt between their vest and their pants show, so one might consider wearing suspenders to hold their pants higher. For a formal evening, a black suit is customary. If one is going out to something such as a jazz club, they would wear a very slim suit with a long-tailed jacket, almost tuxedo style. And of course, no man's outfit would be complete without a hat. Oh, I'm afraid that's all the time I have for this evening. Good day, madame.
We hope you enjoyed our video about the fashion of the 1920s and 30s, and now we will be talking about the impact that the fashion had in the 1920s and 30s.